The MISC Freelancer is a utilitarian ship that, as the name suggests, allows you to complete a majority of the contracts in the verse. There are 3 variants, the Max, the MISC, and the DUR, but we'll talk about those later. The base model has 66 units of cargo, can fit as much or as many boxes as you could possibly imagine. It has surprisingly good combat abilities and a turret to fit a friend also if you want to supplement them. It's one of my favorite ships to just tool around in with some friends. The cockpit seats 4 people, there are 4 beds, and the turret all allow a small group of players to accomplish all kinds of things. The cockpit itself is equally utilitarian as the ship. It has a long, boring dashboard and only a narrow strip of unsexy glass. The ship drives like a boat, slow to speed up, slow to slow down. You have to be very careful about the inertia, especially if you're hauling cargo. And in a way, that creates its own rewarding kind of flying that's different from dogfighting. The weapons on the base model of the Freelancer do a whopping 15k DPS, which is more than almost any light fighter. However, they shoot incredibly slowly, so you better make sure you hit your shots. And also, because it drives like a boat and is larger, you become a pretty easy target. Now, it's also worth to point out that the Freelancer, all of the 4 models, have really good shields. They have the same shield package roughly that the Vanguards do, and those hit harder and have more shields than the majority of fighters. So when you're in combat in a Freelancer and you're trying to protect your precious cargo, all is not lost. And keep in mind that if you want to actively go out and try to do bounty missions in a Freelancer, it's totally possible. In fact, I've done many myself, although I will say I prefer not to do them in the base model specifically. If you are going to fight in the Freelancer, I recommend 2 things. 1, keep track of your shields. Although they are big at 43k, you need to know that they recharge very slowly, especially immediately after you turn on the ship. Don't engage until after your shields are fully charged. Also, the ship weapons are technically gimbaled, but they have a weird lazy eye problem, where one of them will drag across the sky, so in the wrong direction. So you kind of need to just fire with them ungimbaled to ensure that they both shoot straight and center. This can make it harder to fight because you're not as nimble, but it's less tilting than when you ungimbal them and then see half of your shots going way off into the distance and not where you're aiming at all. The Freelancer DUR is billed as an exploration and expedition ship, and it has less than half the cargo space than the base model of the Freelancer, but better weapons, the same shields, and an advanced scanner, and more fuel. The more fuel allows you to go a lot longer without recharging, and you can basically jump from anywhere in the star system to anywhere else and not have to worry about refueling. The turret package is better as well, and also there's a funky machine in the middle that it doesn't do anything yet. Maybe one day it'll make fuel. Who's to say? We don't know. The weapons on this are not only have a higher DPS, but they also shoot a lot faster, which makes it easier to shred. Using my main weapons, my missiles, but no gunner, in this clip I actually shred all 5 of these enemies in under 2 minutes. It's a pretty epic time. What's great about the Freelancer is the same thing that's great about the Vanguards, and that because you're heavy and big, but you have better shields, you can use a tanky playstyle instead of a dogfighting playstyle and take out AI pretty easily. Now, obviously, the PvP is a little more difficult because players mostly fly smarter, but you can still get some good kills. The advanced scanner function does not have a gameplay mechanic yet, but one day the DUR will be able to go into different areas, uncharted or not, and use an advanced scanner, which allows the DUR to see further, farther, and more details than other ships. I'm really excited for that kind of thing, especially if there's some element of deep space travel. But for now, this package feels a lot better to me than the base Freelancer because I don't particularly like hauling cargo, and these weapons are way better. The Freelancer Max, on the other hand, is specifically designed to haul cargo. It has twice as many engines, which means it is the fastest, most nimble of all of the Freelancers when there is no cargo in it, although that quickly changes once it's full. And you'll see it has a much wider cargo bay, fitting over 120 units of cargo, which is about twice the base Freelancer's amount. The weapon package is still pretty sizable and comparable to some other small to medium fighters, and it still has the same 8 missiles, and the front half is all still the same. If you're going to be getting into a lot of combat, or you want to do combat mainly, you probably don't really want to use the Max, but you could. So of course I went to test it out because I love taking random ships into combat. The weapons shoot slowly like the base Freelancer, which means your shots are more important, although they still have a pretty high DPS. The 8 missiles are really the stars of the show because they do the damage for you, and the lock-on process is pretty good. All of the Freelancers notably have a pretty short lock-on time, which is actually really important, especially for a medium-sized ship, because it's harder to maintain the visual to keep the lock on. Again, if you are going to actively seek out bounties or mercenary quests, you probably don't want to be using the Max, but the truth is the shields are still good, just like all the other ones, and you could soup up the weapons and just do it anyway. I mean, there's literally nothing stopping you, and it's kind of funny. The Freelancer MISC is the combat-oriented variant of the Freelancer. It has the same reduced cargo amount that the Freelancer DUR does. I think it's 28 units. Either way, it's half of the base Freelancer, roughly. The MISC stands for missile, and this ship has a ton of them. 28 to be exact, which is a lot. The weapons also have the highest DPS package and the highest rate of fire. They are ballistic, not laser, which is fine because they do 2k damage alone. That doesn't include the turret, and they absolutely shred. I mean, they just evaporate targets. Also, as is always true with faster rates, it's easier to get hits on because you can just click and hold and then drag up to the point instead of really carefully making sure that you get the hits that you need to, like on these slower shooters being the base and the Max. If you specifically want to do combat, of course, this is obviously the Freelancer for you. But what's really great about the Freelancers is that all of them let you do everything. They all have strong shields, although the MISC does have twice as much regen as the other ones. They all let you carry some amount of cargo. You can fit boxes into any of them, and they all have great fuel tanks, which means if you're trying to get across the verse to do random odd jobs or PI things or go to caves, you're not going to have to be stopping to refuel all the time, so you can get more play in and less just land and refuel. The variants, you know, they have their unique things about them, and I hope you find one that you like because the Freelancers are my personal favorite ship. But again, and still, each one lets you do everything because that's what they are. They're Freelancers. Lastly, I'd like to say there's something that I have a particularly fondness for all of the Freelancers. And that is that they feel like a real ship that you might own. There are so many sexy ships in this game with beautiful animations and cool things that do dope-ass dogfighting. But the Freelancer is utilitarian. It feels like a working class ship, and it feels like a ship that if you were an actual Star Citizen, you might actually be responsible for and have. Landing it, flying it, driving it with its weird inertia and its sometimes awkward handling gives you a unique and different kind of satisfaction than just dogfighting in the game, which shows an entire different side of Star Citizen than just the combat alone. And as you open and close the ramp, you feel like you are actually doing a job, the same way you feel when you're doing things with your pickup truck in real life. If you don't have a pickup truck in real life, they're great. But don't tell your friends. They'll always ask you to help move. It's one of the best ships for grabbing a couple friends and tooling around in because they can operate the other computers, they can screw around and play with their guns in the back while you're flying, or they can get in the turret. Also, the ramp is the perfect speed. It goes just fast enough to not make you angry, but just slow enough to still be sexy. I mean, look at it. Look at it. That ramp is the reason I fell in love with Star Citizen.